You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike.
Why, good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is Downeast Mike, the world famous Downeast Mike podcast. We're coming to you live, semi-live, from Downeast Maine, where things are just coming up daisies or roses or something. It's a spectacular day here, almost spring. This is Downeast Mike podcast, episode 118, news and commentary for Saturday, March 16th, 2024. I almost read 2004, then I looked at it again. It is 2024. Time is marching along. A disclaimer, some of this is whimsy, some of it's true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. We leave nothing to chance here. In today's episode, we have a Central Maine Power Company ripoff. That's from 1979. A Gaza grenade. Middle East peace talks are going on, 1969. It almost sounds like a headline from today. K-Mart is a broken lamp debacle. That's from 1979. An important story, one that we do need to revisit, obviously. Broken lamp at K-Mart's a big deal in my book. Maine's Richest Man from 1891. This fella had so much money. 1891. And we have two Maine monster tales. Instead of like a bi-weekly bird or the mammal of the moment, this gets right down to the brass tacks of what we really want to talk about, which is the Maine monster scenario. There are monsters in Maine for sure. Do we have a birthday today? Yeah, we do. It's a happy birthday to Bill. He lives over in Limerick or Turner or someplace. Nice enough guy, but he spends most of his time building a kit car, and that used to be something you buy out of the back of a comic book, but he's serious about it, and they ship him all the parts, and he sits in the garage and chips away at putting it together, everything from painting every part of it to putting the motor in it, and seats, and you name it, and he's a clever guy. He's like 40s, I don't know what, late 40s? He's not that old. But he's embarking on a new career, and he builds cars. And he's a wonderful guy. Happy birthday, Bill. Let's go back to 1979. 1979, on this day. And the Israeli cabinet approved President Carter's compromise proposals for a Middle East peace treaty. That was 1979. Just sounds like today. Carter had told the congressional leaders Wednesday that his Middle East peace package will cost the U.S. about $4 to $5 billion in economic and military aid over 4 years or so. We can just stretch that money out. They sure can pile it on. That was in 1979. We had the story about Central Maine Power Company in the news, and this is out of Wiscasset. And Wiscasset was full of concerns. It's just another tactic by the Clamshell Alliance, and that's just another bureaucrat in Washington had nothing better to do. They wrote noting better to do. Along Main Street and Birch Point Road in Wiscasset, which is called Maine's prettiest village, we have to look up Maine's ugliest village sometime. There might be a closer contest. People disagree about the cause of a forced nuclear power plant shutdown ordered by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but they agree that they're far more concerned about a CMP rate increase than they are about an earthquake. There's earthquakes. Maine Yankee and 4 other nuclear reactors were ordered closed on Tuesday because of design flaws, which might cause a nuclear accident during an earthquake. And Roland Stoltz, he was a barber in Wiscasset at the time. He says, "You remember any quakes hereabouts while trimming a customer on Wednesday?" "Not in my day," said Joseph Delano. He was 67 at the time. Joseph Delano says you notice that he spends his mornings at Stoltz's barber shop. Probably got some pretty good news there. I can remember a couple of shakes now and then, but nothing enough to rattle the dishes, let alone knock out a nuclear power plant. But don't get the idea that Delano is too happy with the Erie plant on the Sheepshead River. He believes he lives across the river from the nuke plant, probably closer than anyone else, he said, and I worry about it. It's just one of those things. It's there, but I wish it wasn't. Stoltz is a lot more afraid of guns than he is of the nuclear plant. He has been on crutches since 1950 when a bullet struck him in the back during a hunting trip, and that's gotta hurt. All this talk about an earthquake is a bunch of bull. I've been here 18 years, and I don't worry about it. They took plenty of precautions. I think they pour that concrete pretty thick at the nuke plants. Did we have anything else there of note about that? Oh, let's see. This surrounding the plant's ridge. And at the tip of Birch Point, the plant in question dominates the skyline. I think there's a beach there, too. It stands in stark contrast with the Maine coastline, like a spaceship settled amongst the pines. Bill Colby, 71, can look out his kitchen window and see the gray globe of the plant. He can see the land where he used to live before they took it from Maine Yankee. If anyone asked me whether the plant should have been there, I would have said no, especially since they took his land. No one asked. It was all set up before we knew anything about it. There wasn't much you could do then. Colby says he doesn't worry about the plant. He doesn't worry about earthquakes either. I'm too old to worry about that stuff. What a clever guy. All right, let's get to our more important story, the nuclear power plants and earthquakes. We need to talk about the lamp from K-Mart. I bought, and this is in the consumer forum, I bought a lamp from K-Mart in Bangor. It was a pole lamp, so we'll picture that. One of the sockets broke. There were 3 sockets on this particular type of lamp. I went to K-Mart and asked if they had any parts. The gentleman at K-Mart, I think this is when they wore the red vest, so you knew that they worked there. The gentleman at K-Mart gave me the address of the company from whom they buy all of their light fixtures. I sent the company the part that was broken and asked if they could provide me with a new one. After 3 or 4 months, with no word from this company, I sent a registered letter asking them why they hadn't sent me back a new part or an explanation. 2 more months have passed with no answer. The name of the company is Rando Industries in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Any help on this matter would be greatly appreciated. Sincerely yours, Roger Richards, Milford. A lot of R's going on there. Since Mr. Richards had already sent the part he wanted replaced to the company, it's difficult to know exactly what particular part to ask the company for. Therefore, this is the consumer forum here, sticking up for this guy. Therefore, we asked Mr. Rogers to go to K-Mart to see if he could get help identifying the part number and lamp model number. After he acquired the correct replacement numbers, we wrote to Rando Industries asking what had happened to his request. Where's the missing part? E.H. Corliss, the vice president of Rando Industries, a division of Randolph Metal Works, answered our letter promptly and said that they did have a record of Mr. Richards' 2 letters and had received some parts. However, he noted, excuse me, all mail is opened at one location and distributed throughout the plant. Neither letter had a return address on it. No wonder Roger Richards of Milford didn't get his part. Neither letter had a return address. Corliss further said that as soon as they received Richards' address, they would send him the replacement parts that he requires at no charge. We sent Mr. Richards' address, and within a week and a half, Mr. Richards had received the parts. He told us they fit fine, and the lamp is now working properly. We cannot stress how important it is to include your name and address on the letter with all the pertinent information that's written to the company. Oftentimes envelopes are thrown away. What just a wonderful heartwarming story with a heartwarming, wonderful ending. Excuse me. We had a bit of a coughing fit there. We muted our microphone. We're bringing it back up. Our board operator is just not paying attention. We had an ad from this day in 1979. Oh, it was for a Honda motorcycle. Check this out, a Honda GL1000, $3,295 at Downeast. A CB750K, Honda CB750K, super styling, 4-cylinder, high performance, only $2,295. And then a Honda CB550K, it must be a slightly different model, $1,995. And that was in 1979 at Downeast. You could buy, they actually look pretty expensive. You can buy a nice car for that money back then. But I remember the CB line. They were a nice motorcycle, right? I can't remember the bad parts about it. Let's go back to 1969 real quick here. The Red Chinese and Soviet troops erupted in a massive fight on a tiny island along their frontier Friday and today for the second time in 2 weeks. Russia and China were going at it. Moscow and Peking charged each other with armed provocation and warned of the possible consequences. Moscow radio said there were an unspecified number of dead and wounded. This is on the Manchurian border. Manchurian border, is that still working? Yeah, I guess it is. 200 miles north of Vladivostok. We'll mangle that one, won't we? The Russians call the island Domansky and claim it's their territory, and the Chinese call it Chenpao and insist it's indisputably Chinese. These things never change, do they? Moscow claimed 31 soldiers were killed there in a clash with the Chinese on March 2nd. That was in 1969. Then we had a grenade going off in Gaza on this day, or day before, wounded 17 students. The explosion followed an anti-Israeli demonstration Friday in which students erected a barricade of burning tires and boxes and threw stones at police. 10 persons were arrested. Some shops closed in protest. Sad to see that stuff is still going on today. Let's go back to even happier times, though. In 1869, the new courthouse in Bath, one of the finest public buildings east of Boston. It's built of brick with brown stone trimmings, and it'll be completed for occupancy in June. The entire building is finished in brown ash. The corridor floor is Vermont slate, and all other floors of hard pine are blind nailed. That's hard to do. The doors are veneered with ash and are finely executed, and the various offices for county use are very pleasant and furnished with fireproof safe rooms for the deposition of papers. The court room is large and tastefully furnished. The desks are of walnut, and the ceiling is admirably frescoed by a Bath painter. I wonder if those paintings are still there. The building is heated throughout by steam. This is 1869. It has an admirable self-acting safety apparatus attached to the boiler. The building will cost about $75,000. Wow, you couldn't even get the boiler for that. And it stands upon a commanding site from the tower. A beautiful prospect is obtained. That's the new courthouse in Bath. Maybe I should drive by that today and see if it's still there and looking good. Kind of disturbing to have Downeast Mike all standing here coughing away. I apologize for that, but I mean, what are you going to do? You just don't have the staff anymore. Everybody quit. Bowdoin College, 1869. Same idea, a story about Bowdoin. The laboratory and its appliances have been brought. This is about Bowdoin College's science room. Laboratory and its appliances have been brought to an unusual degree of convenience and perfection by Professors Brackett and Goodall. In the basement is a 5-horsepower boiler and engine which forces water throughout the building and water jets to the laboratory. The engine is also used to furnish a blast for the furnaces of the laboratory pumping air instead of water. The engines intended also to move a lathe, a lapidary, and a wheel for polishing cabinet specimens, as well as machinery for, I can't quite read that, kneading, crushing, and motive power for the lecture hall and laboratory. The professor has a battery of immense power of 100-gallon-and-a-half cups connected in cohorts of 10 with a communicator, I can't quite read that, so as to give any desired combination, securing either quantity, intensity, or pleasure. The resultant power for this battery is immense. This is quite amazing to me. In 1869, they had all of this technology set up. At the lecture table before the students are motive power, gas, steam, water, and electricity. Great learning environment for them there. Last fall, Professor Brackett gave beautiful illustrations of the convertibility of forces by working the telegraph wires between Bowdoin and Farmington, the electricity being furnished by the motion of a miniature steam engine. Lost our story there. We'll go back to it though. No worries. Professor Goodall is now arranging Herbarium, which will be Nature's extension book in botany. He will speedily have a section embracing the entire northern flora. All of it. I want all the flora. Just amazing. That's Bowdoin College, 1869. Here's a story out of Thomaston. Thomaston is the wealthiest town in Maine. Edward O'Brien, a shipbuilder and a resident of the town, is worth from $1 to $2 million, and there are many other men of large wealth in Thomaston, Maine. Pretty town up there. I like the main streets, really wide. Good place for parades. At Thomaston, the approaching season, there is to be a large amount of shipbuilding, nearly double of last year, the aggregate perhaps 8,000 to 10,000 tons. Edward O'Brien proposes to build a ship in Thomaston, Maine, of 2,200 tons, the largest ship ever built in Maine. He'll also build another ship of 1,800 tons. That's a lot of shipbuilding. Kennebec Valley is famous for its fine. We've gone from Thomaston up to Kennebec Valley. The Kennebec Valley is famous for its fine horses, and many of them get their clothes made at the horse tailoring establishment of Collar and Hamilton of Augusta. This firm employs 15 hands in the manufacture of harnesses. Some of this old scan stuff is hard to read. In the scanning of harnesses of all kinds, giving special attention to fine single and double harnesses. This is a manufacturing plant in the Kennebec of Augusta. The works of J.F. and G.B. McClinch at Hollowell have recently been enlarged by the erection of an iron and brass foundry and extensively improved in other particulars. The firm employs 30 hands, and when in full operation will keep 60 at work. They manufacture a great variety of woodwork and machinery, iron and brass castings, engines, boilers, etc., and their machinery is driven by water power. Isaac McClinch founded this business 40 years ago, and the present firm has been established 2 years. Just remarkable industriousness going on in Maine at that time. Let's see, this was same time, 1869, the question of passing a bill to create a state police. They didn't have state police then. To create a bill to create a state police department to enforce the criminal laws where local officials refuse or neglect to do so of the Androscoggin delegation. So they all got together and said, we need the state police to oversee the local police. Okay, quick story about E.C. Allen. This is from 1891. And he had passed away at this time. He was 42 years old and a very rich man. He's a publisher. E.C. Allen, the great Augusta publisher, died at the Parker House in Boston this morning. He was only 42 years old, but had great ability, untiring industry, and close applications. He had built up a publishing business which was among the largest in the world and without an equal in his particular line of publications. He was known and admired throughout. He was known and admired throughout the world for his publishing. He was born and brought up on a small farm in the town of Manchester, Maine, which is about 7 miles from Augusta, where he received the advantages of such schools as are usually to be found in a small country town. When he was 16 years of age, he began business in Augusta as an advertiser of books and novelties, and was soon able to publish a small monthly for distribution amongst those who answered his ads. This was so bright and spicy that letters poured in asking the subscription price per year, and he thought that was such a great idea that he quickly did that. Try to get to some little meat here. He had established a serial story written by himself entitled Lillian Ainsley, and the story took off like wildfire, and subscriptions came pouring in so rapidly that in less than a year from the start of publication, he was publishing 1.5 million copies. 1891 he was doing this. So anyway, he starts off and builds up this business. He ended up in the heart of the city of Augusta. He built a substantial brick building of 5 stories, and then he required more room. A few years later, he built another building of equal size, but 6 stories high on the opposite side of the street. He connected the two of them by a stone tunnel which runs under Water Street. I don't know if it's still there. He had a powerful coreless engine situated in the basement of the new building, and it furnished the power to run the 19 large cylinder presses, job presses, folding and cutting machines required his business, while 2 smaller engines situated in the upper story of each building run the machinery of the bindery and the electrotype foundry, this being the only electrotype foundry east of Boston. Isn't this just remarkable? This is 1891. He sent through the mail 1,600 tons of matter. He was the largest user of the postal service ever by a publishing house in the United States. So he passed away of pneumonia. He'd been over in Germany drumming up business. When he died, his estate was worth $750,000, 1891, which translates to about $25 million today. Okay, what else do we have? Let's go to our sea serpent stories. This is out of Boothbay Harbor. A small fishing steamer shack, Captain Hardy McGowan of Boothbay Harbor, this is 1897. Hardy McGowan of Boothbay Harbor was out today for herring, and on her return when near Pumpkin Rock east of Damascove, the captain and crew saw a sea serpent, an immense monster from 80 to 100 feet in length with a head 4 feet in diameter, swimming from 6 to 10 feet of his head and neck out of the water. So that's a big fish, huh? They steamed up to time, and he went down, and this they did 3 times, the vessel getting within 200 feet of it twice. Then he had Mr. F.C. Littlefield on board and got 3 shots at the monster with his rifle. But if he struck the fish, the bullets made no invisible impression. Or did he actually hit it? The monster went down, swimming towards the coast. In his progress, he swam just like a swordfish with an undulating motion. In his progress, he moved along, and the crew was able to estimate his length by, as some of them expressed it, the humps breaking on him. There's a hump, there's a hump. In 1822, an old gentleman who passed away last year saw such a fish near Burnt Island off this harbor, and since then it's not known that one has been in the vicinity. All right, we have our last sea story, our last sea fish story. This one is, let's see if we can make that a little bit bigger so we can read it. We'll zoom in on it. Again, some of these scans on the newspaper back in the 1800s, they did a nice job with the typeset. A weird tale was brought into Portland by some fishermen who had returned from Nova Scotia a few days ago. It was about a giant lobster. The lobster had rose to the surface of the water and attacked two fishermen who were casting their lines from a dory which belonged to the smack Three Sisters of Pictou, Nova Scotia, and which was fishing on the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. The story, which is given further along in this article, is a verification of the tale which has been told, and the belief which prevails amongst the Indian fishermen in the Bay of Chaleur. The Micmac fishermen, some of those on the Passamaquoddy, have long insisted that the waters of the Bay of Chaleur are inhabited by a monster lobster, which would rise to the surface of the water, upset the dory of fishermen, seize one of them in his horrid claws, and disappear with him beneath the waves, and carry him down into the ocean and chew on him. The monster is described in Passamaquoddy lore. It has a body fully 6 feet in length and terrible claws to correspond, and has been seen many times by the Indian fishermen who believe it to be the devil in the form of a huge shellfish. No white fishermen, however, have been known to have a sight of this monster, and this story was believed to be an Indian tale. Now, the crew of the Three Sisters insists that the tale of the Micmac fishermen, which they'd formerly scoffed at, is true. They have had an experience with perhaps this very monster spoken of so often by the Micmac fishermen, which resulted in one of the crew being severely wounded and almost dragged down into the ocean caverns to be devoured, as many unlucky Micmacs in the Bay of Chaleur had been on previous occasions. It seems improbable, however, that the monster seen by the white fishermen was the same seen by the Indians, as it was several hundred miles from there. But if there was one monster lobster, why not others, the fishermen said. So they go into some detail about this. It's quite a long article. Talks about him, a great green, slimy-looking thing that was waving its long feelers above its head. They were whacking it with the oar. At first we shouted that a devilfish had attacked the men in the boat, but at that moment a long swell brought us near the dory, and we saw that the object was a huge lobster which was hanging over the side of the boat and having Massey's right arm in one of its horrid claws. The early settlers in New England used to talk about the lobsters because they weren't eaten. There'd be 3-foot lobsters that they could drag up onto the shore because they've lived for awful long time and got really big. So today, out in the deep ocean, there's still 2-foot lobsters. Certainly, potentially could have been a 3-foot lobster. I'm just wondering if maybe they were just doing a little bit of embellishment on that story. At present time, the largest lobster shell known to be in any museum of natural history is the one in the British Museum in London. It measures, when stretched out, body and claws, 38 inches, which sounds a little more reasonable. The body being shorter a trifle than the claws. One of the professors over there, speaking of the giant crustacean, in one of his works, computes its age to have been over 100 years. So there you have it. Probably just a big lobster and some guys having a little bit of fun. And speaking of fun, I think that's about enough fun. That's all we can take for one day. Thanks for listening and watching. This is Downeast Mike, and until next time, I wish you and your loved ones have a day that's full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see you. Everybody gets seasick. Everybody gets seasick now.
Seasick.
Everybody's got a toll to pay, like you on a boat, but the deck begins to sway. Now be brave, get out there, get seasick, get seasick, get seasick. Everybody getting seasick. Everybody getting seasick. Everybody getting seasick now.
Seasick.
Put on some plaid, you'll be glad. Roll up your pants and kick the stands. It's easy to see and easy to do. Jump in now, it's all up to you. Oh, seasick, seasick, so dizzy. Everybody getting seasick. Everybody getting seasick. Everybody getting seasick now.
Seasick.